My name is Jade, and welcome to Stories and Scribes. So, if you watched my last video on Falling for You by Becky Reed, I hope you left a comment, I hope you liked it, and I hope you subscribed to my channel. Today's book is an amazing book. So, if you've read historical fiction, Christian historical fiction, the likes like Francine Rivers, Lynn Austen, you have got to read this particular author, Mesu. It's amazing. I cannot describe the feeling I felt when I read this book. And trust me, I read this book in 48 hours. That's 2 days, because my whole life literally had to stop for the book to be finished. It's that good. And you know what's amazing about the book is it talks about a time in Israel's life where the king was disobedient. The king left God and started bowing down to idols. And the rise of another king, King Hezekiah, which was recorded in the books of Kings and Chronicles, that he was the one who served God. And Mesu Andrews did an amazing job in the research, in the history of it, biblical verses that supported each of the stories that she brought out. And what touched me the most was the life of Queen Hephzibah. It was amazing. Well, let's just get into it. Let me read the synopsis of the book first before I even go any further, to read it. So, Ishmael entered Prophet Isaiah's home as a household servant, but her quick mind and lively spirit gained the friendship of Prince Hezekiah. When Isaiah sees their relationship mature, he adopts Ishmael, giving her a royal pedigree and a new name. Ishmael becomes Hephzibah, which means the light of the Lord, and the desolate captive becomes Judah's queen. Let me just finish. But loving Hezekiah will require more of Hephzibah than she could ever imagine. From Ahaz's terrifying reign to the Assyrian threat and Isaiah's own perplexing prophecies, Zippah, which is short for Hephzibah, remains trapped by fear, facing an uncertain future. Will palace life lead to the freedom from her past, or can she trust everything to the only one who gives life and delivers both the captive heart and a desperate nation? See, never have I read a book that chronicled the stories behind the people we read in the Old Testament. Mesu Andrews did such an amazing job to bring to life the characters of the book. From King Ahaz, who was the king that was the most treacherous in the history of Israel's life, to his son, to Hephzibah, the change of name, Ishmael. She was called Ishmael when she was born, and Ishmael means desolate. And the thing that preceded her life was actually desolation, because then Israel was captured. Then it was divided. Israel was the 11 tribes of Israel, of Jacob, and Judah was separate from them. So Judah, which King Ahaz was the king of, was the one that had given his heart over to idols. Now, Assyria and the king of Assyria had already slaughtered every one of the 11 tribes of Judah. So Ishmael traveled from the 11 tribes, that was Israel then, all the way to Judah after the war. And she experienced desolation because her mom had died, her dad had died, they had destroyed Israel. And they now journeyed from Israel after the prophecy that the prophet had given, and they were set free and moved to Judah. When they moved to Judah, Micah, which was Ishmael's friend's brother, took them to the prophet Isaiah. And many of times when we talk about the prophets or read about the prophets, they were like mighty men, gray hair, serious people. But in reading through this book, you will see the humanity of the prophet. You will see how helpless they were when the king refused to heed the prophecies of God. You will see how They also had families. They also had loves of their lives. They also had children. You could see how when the prophecy came to Isaiah that he was going to give birth, that a woman was going to give birth, and they were going to name that child as a seed, as a revelation, as a healing to the nation of Israel. And God told Isaiah that he was supposed to do that with his wife at the age of 36. It was like, how awkward could that be? God, are you really real or are you not really real? So this book, I'm going to do it in two videos because the depth of it is amazing. Let's talk about Ishma. Ishma was a child that when she was very young, she came to the house of Isaiah, I think at the age of 8. And she couldn't talk because what she had experienced in the war had made her mute. Now, because King Ahaz had begun to worship idols, he was the one that was sacrificing his children to the gods. And in those days, remember when God brought them out of Egypt and they began to conquer the lands, one of the things he said that they mustn't do was they mustn't sacrifice their children to idols. And the king, because he had become so desperate in winning the war and being loyal to the Assyrian king, he sacrificed his firstborn child to fire. And when you read it in Mesu's description, it was as vivid as you putting your hand in fire, but deeper than that, because the son was just tossed into the fire. Hezekiah ran mad. Imagine Ishma coming from the depth of her own trauma, mute. And so the prophet Isaiah and his wife, Aya, decided to bring these two together so that the innocence of their childhood will heal one another. And amazingly, when they first met, Ishma was also intrigued on how the prince could not talk or walk or move. When she saw him, she was wondering, was he alive? And the only reason she knew he was alive was that he was looking up to the doves that were there and his eyes were blinking. And from then, their healing began. And it's amazing how it was. And they grew as friends. Prophet Isaiah began to teach Ishma with the other princes, and they became friends. And that's how they grew. And it's amazing the twists and turns of a prince being groomed for the throne, and the scheming of a desperate mother to ensure that her child is no longer thrown into the furnace as a sacrifice. And Israel had departed from the Lord. So, according to the prophet Isaiah, doom was coming, and Assyrian prince was going to destroy them. This is one of the key lessons I learned. Yahweh, which is what they describe God then as, is the only way to heal a heart. And yes, I understand that when people, they say misery has its company and it loves its company. But I also find out that when I am deeply hurt, I can understand the hurt of another. That's one of the large lessons I learned in this book. And I appreciate the description of this book because it brings Israel to the reality of what so when we read, Chronicles and First Kings and Second Kings, and we read, all of these books, we do not appreciate the simplicity of their lives as it were our lives. Because we read it, we think it's one holy, olden days, description of how they lived and how they were. But I also discovered that it can be translated to our everyday life. Then, girls married at the age of 12. Boys become men at the age of 13 and enroll into the army. It was normal when they talk of Yeshua, when they talk of Sabbath day, when they talk of sacrifices, just like us going to church and dropping our offerings in the offering basket. So I appreciated the reality and the realness of those days as applied in this book. Prophet Isaiah, it's a whole long story. Today, I just want to encourage anyone that has gone through such a traumatic experience, give your heart to Jesus. Jesus is the only one that can heal you of that pain, of that trauma, of that thing that happened to you that is undescribable, and your heart has left and given up hope. And as you progress in your love work with God, God will heal you. God loves you, and he will come close to you. So look out for the next video as we conclude on this, because there is so much more. We're going to talk of King Ahaziah, his wife. We're going to talk of King Hezekiah, their love story. But all I wanted to bring out today is God heals, God loves, God never forgets. It might seem like he's not there, but trust me, every day of our lives has been written and God is aware. See you in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe, click the link below, and till next time, thank you for watching.